Hello, my name is Toni Marie Gist, and I'm a professor in nutrition. And I want to thank you for trusting me with your nutrition information. I put together a little presentation to walk you through some key concepts in nutrition. So let's get started by me sharing my screen with you, and we can discuss the topic. And so, first, I want to walk you through how you can be your own nutrition detective. We've got 5 learning objectives that we want to cover. The first one is define nutrition and showcase its importance. The second is discuss how scientists research nutrition information. Third, we're going to identify common myths and misconceptions in nutrition. There are so many out there, but let's talk about just a few. Then we're going to discern who you can turn to for reliable nutrition information. And lastly, we're going to provide helpful hints and tips for healthful eating on a budget. You ready? Well, let's begin with that first learning objective. The first one is define nutrition. And nutrition is, very simply put, the study of how foodstuffs, which I'm going to use that term to describe food and drink, how foodstuffs affect health and well-being. So now we kind of need to have some sub definitions because we don't necessarily know what health and well-being truly are. So the definition of health, according to the World Health Organization, is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmary. Kind of an interesting concept because most people just think, oh, I don't have a deficiency disease, therefore my nutrition is just fine. Not so much. Is your nutrient intake, is your nutrition, do your choices support your best physical, mental, and social well-being? Let's find out. So next we want to define just well-being in general. And well-being in general, again, according to World Health Organization, is a term that encompasses the quality of life and the ability of people and societies to contribute to the world with a sense of meaning and purpose. And I'm going to give you a very specific example from my life in a little while that will highlight these two terms in a way that hopefully makes you think about it a little bit more. And when we're talking about discussing what we're taking in and what we're consuming, I actually put together 12 steps to a healthier you in the book that you have. So step 1 is to have you sit there and think about what it is you ate. What did you eat yesterday? Do you remember? Did you write it down? If you didn't, maybe that's a practice that would help you to really reflect on what's going on. The second question is why? Why did you eat that food? And why you ate it is going to give you a little more insight as to how you can move forward with healthy food choices as well. Then we want you to think about the 5 characteristics of a healthful diet. And if you don't know what they are yet, don't worry, I'll go over them very soon. And then think about what characteristic is most difficult for you to achieve. So after you fill this out, share your thoughts with a friend. What's going on with regard to these choices that you're making? Did you choose these foods due to their contribution to health, or were there other reasons? Well, let's continue to ponder that as we go through a few more topics. So, for example, one of the things we want to discuss is what are the 5 characteristics or principles of a healthy diet? We have adequacy, variety, balance, moderation, and nutrient density. And you can remember it this way. All veggies bring more nutrients. That's how I remember it. And adequacy means that you've gotten enough of the nutrients that you need for health and well-being. If you aren't consuming enough calcium, it's going to put you at a health risk for osteoporosis. If you're not consuming enough protein, you can get into a protein deficiency and have other health consequences. We also want you to have variety, which means you're choosing different foods every day. If you're someone who's like, I have my breakfast is always oatmeal with blueberries, and I always have some soy milk on the side. And my lunch is always chicken, broccoli, and rice. And my dinner is always a salad with beans on it and some fruit on the side. Those are great food choices in general. However, if you have the same food every single day, what you're doing is if you're over consuming one nutrient and under consuming another, it gets amplified day after day after day. And you have even more of an a problem with regard to over consuming some things and under consuming others. So mix it up a little. That's my challenge to you. The third characteristic or principle of a healthy diet is balance. If you're someone who is following My Plate, or again, the USDA food guide, then that's something that is going to be what we call a different dietary pattern where you have food groups. You can also choose a different dietary pattern, such as the Mediterranean diet or other ones that have different food groupings that you can look at. But the reason that these dietary plans have different food groups is because collectively those food groups allow you to have a really healthful diet. So if you're missing one of those food groups from a recognized healthful dietary pattern, think about what foods might meet that nutritional need. For example, if you're consuming a traditional American diet and you're using My Plate, they do have a dairy section or a dairy food group. And if you're like, I can't have dairy, it doesn't agree with me, then what you need to do is realize that the dairy group provides calcium, vitamin D, as well as some protein. So if you're mixing it up and then you're having some deep green leafy vegetables, which have the calcium, and then you take a vitamin D supplement and you make sure that you're consuming enough protein from other foods, you should be good to go. But just understand a little bit more about those food groups. Next, we have moderation. And if you're growing a delicious healthy diet in your backyard and you're like, I just grew this long stalk with Brussels sprouts on it and I'm wanting to eat as many Brussels sprouts as possible because it's the most delicious vegetable, and you make a big old bowl of Brussels sprouts and you just eat excessive amounts of it, not only will you not feel very healthy the next day, those around you will not be happy. And if you've never done this before, like overconsumed vegetables in a short period of time when your body's not ready for it, let me tell you, definitely not something you want to try. You want to have everything in moderation, even very healthful foods, things that are going to be recommended to consume regularly. Make sure you're having the appropriate amount in your diet itself. And the fifth principle is nutrient density. We want foods that are nutrient dense, meaning they are higher in vitamins and minerals and lower in overall calories. That way we can naturally get as many micronutrients or those vitamins and minerals into our body as possible in a way that is fantastic and lending to the best health possible. So now that we have those 5 characteristics or principles of a healthy diet, why do we care? Like, why do we care about nutrition? Why should we? Well, we should care about nutrition for a number of different reasons. One is there are very few subjects that are as impactful as nutrition. For example, you are what you eat. Like if I have some nuts and I'm going to consume these, the almonds are going to be broken down. They're going to be digested into their component parts, absorbed into my bloodstream, and literally make the fabric of my body. These cells that are part of my hand are from my food inputs that have been assimilated as my body. So you should care what you eat, because I want to be made from things that are going to be, again, as beneficial as possible for my longevity and my health. Because what you eat does affect your health. And we're going to discuss this in more detail in just a moment. It's also recommended that you eat every day. So you might say, Toni, but all these other classes are really important. Like astronomy is important. And no disrespect to astronomy. Astronomy professors, don't hate on me. But nutrition, yeah, every day you're going to be putting something into your body, whether it be a food or a drink. It will be a food stuff. And therefore, kind of need to know what you're doing. So let's learn a little bit more. But you might say, well, Toni, with regard to my health, exercise is more important. I actually have 2 advanced degrees, one with a nutrition focus and one in exercise physiology. And even though exercise is really important, again, I'm even a personal trainer. I do personal training for individuals. It is not as impactful on a daily basis as nutrition might be. Because even though we have exercise recommendations from the Center for Disease Control, they're less than every day. Like it's recommended that you exercise minimum 150 minutes of moderate intensity activity, not every day, every week. So that means you can have like 3 days where you're exercising about an hour each and get that moderate intensity exercise in. And then you might have 2 more days that you have muscle strengthening per week. That's part of the recommendation as well. So you're doing some resistance training, and that's going to be fantastic and really contribute to your overall health. But I would argue that on a daily basis, the choices that you make, understanding nutrition might be even more important. And this is one of the reasons I got interested in it. It hit home. It kind of really hit home. Here we have 2 pictures. The top picture is the picture of my father. He was in his early 70s. This is after years and years of being physically disabled because of some of his choices. He made choices that were not the best for his overall health. He had a poor diet, and that wasn't all. He also decided to work very hard. He was an entrepreneur, and he spent a lot of time at the desk. He's extremely sedentary for most of my childhood growing up because he was so worried about earning money. He also made other choices that weren't the best, such as he was a chain smoker, as well as the fact that he decided that he was going to drink quite a bit to help decrease the stress. He did it in not the healthiest of ways. So the poor diet, the sedentary lifestyle, the smoking, as well as the drinking, all made him collectively not do so well. And he became disabled when I was in my teens, early 20s. In contrast, my uncle, who is in the picture below, and you can see me on the right-hand side of my uncle. My uncle's got this cute little black beret on. And then you see my daughter, Savannah, my son, Clayton, on the left-hand side of that picture. He made choices that were in alignment with the recommendations. And so my kids and myself are still able to spend time with my uncle. My uncle paid attention to healthful food choices. And with regard to his physical activity, he was a triathlete, which means he was biking, swimming, and running into his late years. And he even placed in the Chicago Marathon for his age division several times. And then he was also a non-smoker, which makes a big difference. And my uncle is still with us in his 80s and still traveling and writing and contributing to the world around him. So his wellness ranks very, very high. Whereas my dad is no longer with us. He passed away when my kids were little. So that's why it kind of is important to me to have you all learn about this topic so that you can make choices that are going to help you live as long a life as possible with as much meaning as you want to have. So as we continue to move on, like I mentioned, my dad had some chronic illnesses, meaning they were long-term illnesses. It takes a long time to have them manifest in your body, as well as it kind of stays with you once you get diagnosed with them. Chronic illnesses like heart disease, obesity, high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes, and even some types of cancers are associated with a diet that is not ideal. So here we have a placard from the American Heart Association, and they're saying, hey, add color to your diet. Choose fruits and vegetables that are bright in color, like tomatoes, strawberries, things like that, that are going to be that bright red, pomegranates. Then move on to things like oranges, some sweet potatoes, things that are going to be orange and in nature. And then we can have things like avocados, apples, grapes. We can have blueberries, as well as one of my favorite foods that's currently growing in my garden downstairs, is eggplant, that bright purple bulbous eggplant. Have a plate that's full of all these different colors, and you will decrease your likelihood of having these chronic diseases. Additionally, we want you to have a proper diet so that you decrease your likelihood of having acute problems or short-term problems with your health. So we got some specific examples of acute issues that can surface if you don't have the proper foodstuff intake or hydration intake. So when we first start this discussion, let's talk about hydration and minerals, because there was a situation when the gaming system, the Wii, first came out, where they were very hard to acquire. And there was a radio disc jockey, and that radio DJ had a contest where they pulled on 3 individuals and they had to compete for a Wii gaming system. And the contest name was Hold Your Wii for a Wii. And if you were holding your Wii, that means you had to drink a lot of water in a short period of time. And if you urinated, you were out of the radio contest. You could not win the gaming system. And the person who drank the most water in a given amount of time without going to the bathroom won the gaming system. There was a mother who wanted to win the gaming system for her son very badly. And she drank lots of water in a short period of time, did not urinate until after she won the gaming system. Then once she won it, she went home. And but she'd set herself into a water electrolyte imbalance, which we call hypo, or too little, Na, meaning sodium, tremia. So hyponatremia, which is diluted sodium in the bloodstream. Her brain swelled and she ended up passing away. More recently, meaning in the past few months prior to my filming of this video, there was a mother who died from overhydration, or again, we refer to that as hyponatremia. And we have an ode to her that her family members had put up, more or less saying their hearts were broken. They did not realize that this is an issue. If you are chugging or drinking very quickly a lot of water, no matter how thirsty you were before you started drinking all that water, you need to make sure you're sipping slowly on it so that your body can acclimate, or else you can get into a situation where it can potentially cost your life. There's also supplement deaths. Supplements should only be taken if there is someone in the field of nutrition that is monitoring and making sure you're doing it properly. That's my opinion. It's very conservative. I understand. However, I do want to kind of let you know that reputable sources, lots of the National Institute for Health, says as few as 10 iron supplements can kill a small child. And if you're wondering, okay, what's an iron supplement? A lot of people have anemia, which is an iron deficiency with that causes a low red blood cell and low oxygen carrying capacity. So they're prescribed oftentimes these ferrous sulfate tablets with 600 milligrams of elemental iron. Well, if the children get into that and they take 10 of these supplements, it can actually cause respiratory distress and failure. So sorry that we're talking about death. Kind of brought the broom down very quickly here. We also, let's move on to something a little bit better. We have protein needs. And so with regard to protein needs, an individual only needs 0.8 to 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. If you're someone who is sedentary or you don't move around a lot, you may need only that 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. If you're someone who is working out for hypertrophy or muscle deposition, and you're really getting it at the gym to complete muscle failure with major muscle groups on a regular basis, maybe you need closer to that 1.6 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. But you also need more carbohydrates and more lipids and more of all the micronutrients too, if you're killing it at the gym. So you just need more food if you're trying to work out for hypertrophy. If you're over consuming protein, or you have a diet that is imbalanced with way too much protein and too little of other things, it puts you at risk for general disorders of renal function. Additionally, it puts you at risk for disorders of liver function. And more specific to the renal or kidney function, the most painful thing that I've heard that a person can go through is kidney stones. Yes. And so here, to me, one of the reasons I don't want to massively overconsume protein and get dehydration in addition to having an imbalanced diet is because I don't want kidney stones. I don't. I hear they're more painful than having children. I've had 2 children. I don't want to have things that are more painful than that happening to my body. So with that in mind, consume the right amount of protein. That's my short version. So what does NIH, or the National Institute for Health, say about nutrition's importance? I'm sure you can assume what they're going to say, but let's quote them specifically. Quote, scientific evidence shows that healthful eating patterns can help people achieve and maintain well-being, meaning you're contributing to the world around you, you're enjoying your life, and reduce their chance of chronic disease. Makes sense. They go on to say that the dietary guidelines for Americans say that people can enjoy foods that meet their personal needs and cultural preferences while eating healthy. So if you feel like you've got to cut out some of your favorite foods because you're like, that's not on the list of things I think are healthy. No, you can enjoy almost anything. In fact, a lot of times we choose food for more than just its health benefits. Let's discuss that in a second. So, can food be used for more than just its health impacts? Yes, 100% yes. We've got so many different reasons we choose foods. Like, for example, let me just have you pause. Let's have like a reflective assignment here. What comes to mind with the following? Popcorn. Think in your head or share it with a friend. Okay, got it? Let's move on to the next one. Turkey. Okay, think it in your head. What's associated with turkey? If you don't know, we'll tell you in a minute. Or McDonald's. Under what circumstances do you go and grab McDonald's? Or when do you have cake? Like, when is the time when you're like, I know when I arrive there will be cake? Think about that. As well as, can anyone turn down warm cookies right out of the oven? I know it's hard for me to do that. So as we circle back around, let's see if you are on the same page as other people. For example, when I literally look up stock footage or stock videos of popcorn, this is what comes up. Literally, the movies are in 2/3 or more of these pictures. So not only do you likely associate popcorn with the movies, so does the rest of the world. So much so that I know that one time I went to the movies and I didn't get any popcorn, and all I remember about the movie was being sad and mad that I didn't have popcorn, literally. In case I didn't tell you, we study what we love. And I spent a lot of years studying food. So yeah, I love food, like a lot. And this class is not going to walk you through how to be the skinniest, prettiest you can be. It's going to walk you through how you can be as healthy as possible while maintaining your well-being, meaning that you are going to live the life that you want to. Well, with that being said, one of the holidays that we eat the most at is Thanksgiving. And if you look up the word Thanksgiving and you're looking for stock images, literally food is in half of the pictures, and the food that's there is going to be turkey. So if you thought of Thanksgiving when I mentioned turkey, you were on the same page as a lot of people, and also pumpkin pie. So these celebrations are things that are definitely associated with very specific cultural decisions, like what food are we going to eat? Nutrition is a science, though. And so it's not just as simple as, hey, eat an apple a day and you'll be healthy, or, use the food guide pyramid and 2 thumbs up. What we want to let you know is there's a lot of research and science that goes into these recommendations. So you might say, okay, well, what is research? Like, if you're talking about research and nutrition being a science, what is it? Well, research is the systematic investigation into and the study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. It's a lot of words to more or less say, we need to find out how what you eat impacts your health so that we can come to conclusions, so we can make recommendations that are going to allow you to learn about how you can decrease your likelihood of cancer, heart disease, fatty liver disease, tooth decay, and osteoporosis. And this is just a very short list of topics that are researched at what we call R1 institutions, or research institutions, like the University of Illinois, like Harvard, Princeton, other sorts of places that are known for their research and their nutrition, in fact. So if you want to know what the typical steps are in nutrition research, here it is very simply. We're looking at the scientific method pretty much. We have an observation. For example, what did you notice? You may have noticed it with a group of people, like, oh, I noticed that these populations who consume a lower percentage of their calories in saturated fat have a lower incidence of heart disease. So if you notice that and you do some background research and find out what other individuals have published, then you can write what we call literature review. See where maybe something is missing as far as the data, and where you might be able to add to that data set. Then you create a hypothesis saying increased intake of saturated fatty acids is associated with an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. So that's a statement. A hypothesis is generally a statement, and the statement can either be supported by the data or the data doesn't support it. You just say the data supports the hypothesis or it does not. You're never proving anything through research. You're just saying your data supports this construct. Next, as we are wanting to find out if this hypothesis holds any water, no pun intended, we are going to create a way to either study this phenomenon or do an experiment where we're testing it. We're then going to analyze the data. We generally have statisticians that do that because we need to actually have some pretty robust statistical analysis. We are going to make some conclusions. Does the data support the hypothesis? And then we're going to report it. And the best place to report is going to be in a peer-reviewed journal article. So if you're trying to find reputable sources in nutrition, I would say go to that peer-reviewed journal article to see if you can find out what they have to say. You might wonder though, because you might say, well, I've noticed that these people have this happening at the same time as this other artifact. That must mean that those two things, like one is causing the other. Not necessarily. So when we're looking at research, what we want to do is understand that there's a difference between correlation and causation. So correlation means that there is a statistical measure that expresses the extent to which two variables are linearly related, meaning they kind of change together at a constant rate. This is a standard tool for describing superficial relationships, and this is not saying that there's any cause and effect. There's no cause and effect necessarily. For us to find out if there's causation or cause and effect, we have to take research a step further and actually have an intervention, because causation means that the act or this first thing is causing this specific effect. Let's discuss this with like kind of a funny little example, because Harvard has something to say about it. Harvard wrote this article about, correlation versus causation. And they have this example where they're talking about the correlation between the divorce rate in Maine and the per capita consumption of margarine. And they're drawing from another data source when they're looking at it. So they're like, from year 2000 to year, 2020, we have this situation where these two things are correlated. And so their article, and pardon me for reading it, but I find what they say kind of funny. They say, did you know that the divorce rate in Maine strongly correlates with the per capita consumption of margarine? Wow, maybe abstaining from margarine prevents divorce. I can definitely imagine a pop media article with this eye-catching title. Before throwing out all your margarine to save your marriage, an intelligent reader like you would probably think to yourself, what absurdity. It's probably a coincidence that the trends match and there is no causal relationship between them after all. So you can think about correlation as kind of like coincidence and causation as one thing causing the other. I'm sure you understand that the divorce rate in Maine is not dependent on margarine consumption. But let's talk about something that might be even a little bit more confusing, such as there are some correlations that are related to ice cream. So here we have increased ice cream sales. What are they correlated to? One is an increase in murder rate in New York. No joke. You're like, what? Why would that be a correlation? But I'm going to tell you right now, this is one of those correlations that's kind of interesting, because if A causes B and B causes C, then maybe A causes C. What's going on there? When do you think that individuals in New York are consuming more ice cream? So think. When are they consuming more ice cream? Well, if you said they might be consuming more ice cream when it's warm outside, you are correct. Also, you might think, oh gosh, when are people going to have more interactions that might cause some little fussiness where someone might want to, I don't know, murder another person? Well, that happens more when people are outside interacting, or they're overheated from a day and it's causing them to be angry and upset, etc. So the heat is kind of that link between the two, not necessarily the fact that people are buying ice cream. Also, if you look, there's an increase in drowning deaths associated or correlated with an increase in ice cream sales. Same thing, more people swim during times when it's warm. So you might initially go, well, the data doesn't lie. Huh? Or does it? So when you're looking at articles, think back to what we're saying here. Is it correlation that might be happening, or is there actually a causative effect? And you might have to go to that first source article where you're looking at what happened in that peer review publication. Did they actually change something and then measure an effect, or did they not? And that's going to really give you the most information possible. You're picking up on the fact there's lots of myths and misconceptions in this topic. So we want to understand, what is the definition of a myth? What is the definition of a misconception? So a myth is, by definition, a wildly held but false belief. And so one of these myths in nutrition is vitamin C and a cold virus. So people think that vitamin C is going to protect you from a cold virus. That's one of the myths. And that's really not the case. So research on vitamin C is going to tell you that, yeah, that's not going to happen. I'll put a link to this article down in the description of the video below. We also have misconceptions in nutrition, and misconceptions are incorrect understandings or interpretations. So here we have a misconception. Low fat or fat-free products are healthier choices compared to a traditional product. So oftentimes people will have that misconception. They think that just because it's lower in fat means that it's going to be healthier for an individual overall. I do want to say that some lower fat products actually boost their flavor. They take out the fat, which is very flavorful. Fat is kind of delicious. And then they add in things like sugar or other ingredients that are not as healthful. So if you look at this peanut butter, you'll notice that the ingredients are in that peanut butter itself, first is peanuts, but then after that, it's going to be things like, I don't know, maybe some high fructose corn syrup solids, which are not going to be as healthful in general. And Mayo Clinic also has an article on myths and misconceptions, and I'm going to put that link down below as well. Another myth that is out there is all natural foods are healthiest. And if you're wondering what natural means, these are products containing no artificial ingredients or added colors and only minimally processed. And by minimal processing, we mean that the product was processed in a manner that doesn't fundamentally alter the product itself. And this is a definition that is shared by the United States Department of Agriculture. But I also want to share that we've got some natural products that aren't that good for you. For example, most of us really consume way too much sodium in our diet, but people are like, you know what? I'm not going to have regular table salt. I'm going to have some Himalayan sea salt, and that Himalayan sea salt will be much more healthful for me than my regular table salt. No, both of them are going to contribute sodium. Both of them are going to increase the sodium concentration in your bloodstream. They're both going to have the same kind of impact on your overall health and well-being. We also have ribeye steak. Ribeye steaks are delicious. Nothing wrong with a ribeye steak occasionally, if you're someone who's omnivorous and doesn't have ethical issues with it. However, ribeye steaks have over 2/3 of their calories from fats or lipids. If you're eating a ribeye steak for protein, yes, there is protein in there, but you're actually eating a lot more calories from fat or lipids than you are from protein itself. So if you're trying to have protein for your overall health and well-being, ribeye steak might not be helping you achieve that goal. Additionally, another natural product is going to be lard. And if you don't know what lard is, we'll be discussing it throughout this video series. And lard is the back fat of a pig. And you might say, why are we talking about the back fat of a pig? Because it's an ingredient in a lot of different foodstuffs. So around us, we have some famous Amish populations that make these delicious and decadent cookies and flaky pie crusts and other things that use lard as a main ingredient. With that in mind, we want to make sure that you understand that, yes, it's delicious, but is it the most healthful? Just because it's natural doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be as healthy for you as other options. Another misconception is they wouldn't sell it if it wasn't healthy for us, right? In fact, according to the National Institute for Health, reputable source of nutrition, over 10,000 international units of preformed vitamin A is a concern. And here we have a vitamin A supplement called Solaray. No disrespect to it as a company or as a supplement. I just want to let you know that I'm stating to you some facts. National Institute for Health says that if you're over consuming vitamin A, you can have liver abnormalities, teratogenic effects, meaning that if you're pregnant, the child that's growing in utero is going to potentially mutate. So not good. Terato means monster-like, so it actually changes the way that the development occurs. Also, in children under 6 years old, it can be toxic and cause death. And you might say, well, Toni, surely the dry A doesn't have over 10,000 international units of preformed vitamin A. It might have different kinds of vitamin A. Well, this is literally from where you can buy it. The supplement warehouse says, quote, the Solaray dry vitamin A product provides 25,000 international units of total vitamin A. You're going, oh, that's way more than the 10,000. It is. We have 15,000 international units of beta carotene. That is not going to be something that's active. It's like vitamin A from carrots or other plant sources. It's not going to cause a toxicity concern, but their retinol palmitate, which is an active form of vitamin A, is right up at the top level of what is a concern. So that means that if you decide to, I don't know, have some eggs with an egg yolk, you now have gotten vitamin A in an active form that has bumped you above that 10,000 international units. Or if you decide to maybe have some pate or some fried liver or something else that has active vitamin A in it, you are above the recommendation where it is going to be potentially causing some issues with your health and well-being. So definitely understand that we don't have a regulating body that oversees supplements before they make it to the market. Kind of scary. They only start getting involved. The government starts recalling things after, yes, after people start getting sick and having issues. So that's up to you whether you want to start taking some of these supplements without any nutritional consults. But I would say if you want to take anything like this, make sure you find out if you're deficient in a vitamin or mineral, and then make sure you're working with someone who is an expert in the field of nutrition to make sure you're not hurting yourself or those around you. Another misconception, whole grain means it's good for me. So here we got this picture, Lucky Charm cereal, and Lucky's right on there, happy as can be, telling you, hey, this is healthy. We got whole grain. So just because they have the claim whole grain does not mean that it doesn't have other ingredients or artifacts in there that might be something that you want to take into consideration. And there are other claims on the front of these packages. Yeah. I need to have a little sip of coffee before we move into the next one, because we've got lots of claims. Here is some corn oil that has a nutrient content claim on it. And these nutrient content claims can be used with approved wording to describe the nutrient values or content of a food. So we've got things like reduced fat, which means that you have an original product, and then comparatively, we have something that has less fat than a traditional product. So you've got regular mayonnaise, and then we have reduced fat mayonnaise. We have regular peanut butter, and then you have reduced fat peanut butter. We also have low sugar, which is like there's a line in the sand, and then below that, it is low sugar. So you've got less than a certain number of grams of sugar per serving, makes it low. Then we have cholesterol free, which again makes me kind of laugh a little, because cholesterol is only in animal products. Seriously, people. So we have all these plant products that are putting like cholesterol free on the labels. Okay. But then if you read on, it says here, corn oil is a cholesterol free food, but it has 14 grams of fat per serving. Okay. Yes, it is cholesterol free. but it has a lot of lipid or fat. And if you look at dietary patterns of Americans, we overconsume our fat to begin with. So that can cause some issues with our body's production of cholesterol. So yes, this might not have any dietary cholesterol in this corn oil, but our liver might respond to excessive lipid intake and produce more cholesterol for our bloodstream to have to deal with. So just thought I'd say that. We also have things like good source of iron, excellent source of vitamin D. All of these are in reference to a nutrient class or subclass, and it kind of defines where these nutrients are with respect to other products or with respect to kind of a line in the sand as to how much is in that food itself. Yes, these claims on the front of food packages can be trusted 100%, but what can't be trusted is our assumptions. That's what gets us into trouble. We make all these assumptions about, oh, it's cholesterol free, therefore it's good for my heart, and therefore it's going to not cause any health issues. That's an assumption that you have. You need to learn a little bit more, or everyone needs to learn a little bit more, including myself. Everyone does, about what is reputable with regard to nutrition itself. So, like I said, for example, cholesterol is only in animal products. So all plant products are free of cholesterol. Anything that's vegan friendly doesn't need to say cholesterol free on it because it shouldn't have any cholesterol. On the flip side, also, if you have something that has cholesterol in it, it's not vegan friendly, meaning that someone who does not consume animal products, they shouldn't have a food that has cholesterol in it. So another type of packaging claim is a health claim. And health claims are used with approved wording to describe the potential health benefits of consuming the foodstuff. Things like may reduce the risk of osteoporosis. So that might be a food that has enough calcium or vitamin D in it. Or with respect to coronary heart disease, it might be a food that's lower in saturated fat and lower in dietary cholesterol. There are even things like gums that say may reduce the risk of dental caries or cavities in your teeth, and they might have artificial sweeteners in them. And there are even more health claims that are out there, but these are just a few so that you can understand that yes, there is an individual or a group of individuals who are overseeing these terms and making sure that they meet a certain criteria before a company can put it on their box. You might also wonder what the ingredient list is on a food package. And so here we decided to bring up our Lucky Charms again. And this is an ingredient list that lists all the ingredients in descending order by weight. And it can kind of be used in a manipulative way because if we look at Lucky Charms here one more time, we have whole grain oats as the first ingredient. Yes, it does have whole grains in it, but then it has sugar as the second ingredient. Then we have cornstarch, modified cornstarch. Then we have corn syrup, as well as dextrose. So if we think about this Lucky Charms cereal, it will give us a better indication of how manufacturers can potentially use this to their benefit. Because if we were to say, hey, let's have whole grain oats as one thing, and then the sugar, corn syrup, and dextrose added together, the sugar might be that first ingredient all of a sudden. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Another piece of information that you can look to is the nutrition facts panel, and it can be trusted. It lists things like the serving size, the calories per serving, it has nutritional content per serving, a percent daily value or percentage relative to the amount you should be consuming per day, as well as at the bottom, there's a little footnote that says, hey, this is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. If you need fewer calories, maybe consume less of this stuff. If you need more, maybe consume more. And you might wonder who else is a reliable source of nutrition information. Got a lot of reliable sources. One is a nutrition professor like myself. We've earned either a master's of science or a PhD in a nutrition related field. Another individual is a clinical registered dietitian. On my campus, we have a health health services at McKinley, and they provide clinical registered dietitian consults for free to our students. We also have published authors in a peer-reviewed journal article focusing on nutrition. And you want to make sure you have a journal that's like a high impact journal, like the Journal of Clinical Nutrition or National Institute for Health. Those are going to be high impact journals. Educational sites such as .edu should all have some sort of review from other individuals, and therefore they should be reputable. National Institute for Health or NIH. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, as well as the United States Department of Agriculture, or the USDA. And you might wonder what is meant by healthful eating. And so when we're talking about healthful eating, healthy means a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. We had talked about that earlier. It's not merely the absence of disease. And the World Health Organization is the individuals who we're going to turn to when we are looking for some of these really high-end definitions. And when we talk about healthful eating, it includes all of the above. It includes, again, physical, mental, social well-being. And with those, are you setting yourself up for your best health? Just something to ask yourself. And as we get further in, we want you to discuss with others about your hints and tips on healthful eating. They might be able to provide you hints and tips as well. So let's talk about my suggestion. My suggestion is start out by purchasing inexpensive, healthful staple items to keep costs down while allowing for a base. So things like whole grain rice, canned chicken, canned beans, things like frozen vegetables are all going to be relatively inexpensive if you buy them on sale, and you can store them for a longer period of time in your cupboard or in the freezer itself. In the book itself, we actually have recipes that are tailored for college students. So for chapter 10, we have like a little burrito mug, and it talks about some tips and tricks. It talks about how to have some inexpensive dietary choices that might meet your nutritional needs. And I understand that nutrition can be very complex. So with that in mind, just know that I'm here for you. Reach out via email, reach out via stopping by my office, or just let me know if you've got any questions, because I am here to help. So with that in mind, it looks like it zoomed way in on me. Oh my goodness. Hopefully that's not overwhelming for you to see me this close, but I do want to say thank you for hanging out with me the past 45 minutes. Let me know how I can help on your health and wellness journey.